Do you find yourself constantly poking at your laptop screen thinking that it's a touchscreen? Oh, me neither. I tested out the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro to see if it would be the perfect work device for pros like me. There's a lot to like, a few weird things that confuse me, and a couple of things that I wish they would improve upon. Let me just spill the rice, because Xiaomi is small rice in Chinese. Get it? Let's be real, smartphones have become everyone's primary device. Even your mother's obsessed with Reels and TikToks now. So lugging around a bulky work laptop with no touchscreen just feels like stepping back in time. Okay, boomer, you can have your laptop, just go play over there. If you're not constantly typing away, a compact tablet might be the obvious choice. Thanks to recent hardware and software improvements, tablets today are faster, more power efficient, and ready to tackle just about anything you throw at them. Even your kids. No, especially your kids. Can you even get 5 minutes of peace without Coco Melon? The Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro starts at 2,499 ringgit and comes with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage with a 100 ringgit discount right now. There's also a 269.9 ringgit version with 12GB of RAM and double the storage, because Xiaomi knows what you'll be doing with the extra storage. Even with the more expensive Focus keyboard at 799 ringgit, that looks oddly familiar. It is still more than 1,000 ringgit cheaper than a similarly spec'd Fruit brand Air and a keyboard combo. Which honestly is what makes a device like this so appealing for most M40 or for you non-Malaysians out there, middle and even middle upper class people who are more conscious about their buying habits. There's even a cheaper 499 ringgit keyboard that is not adjustable if you're on a budget. In the box, you get the tablet itself, and a USB Type-A to C charging cable. The Chinese version comes with a 67-watt charger in the box. The global version, which is the one that we received, comes with the charger as well, but it's provided separately. It's probably Xiaomi's effort to streamline packaging for different regions so they can keep it this small. The tablet looks very sleek in an all-aluminum construction that is pretty basic these days. Still, it feels very premium and comes in 3 colors: grey, green, and blue. None of that fancy space grey or like emerald green nonsense you get with other brands. How pretentious. Just joking, I still love you guys. Xiaomi's also reduced the thickness to 6.18mm from 6.5 on the Pad 6 Pro. In fact, the chassis where your hands will be holding it is even thinner. And at just 500 grams, the Pad 7 Pro feels very comfortable for prolonged use. See, I can even do this without hurting my wrist. But if you're a boomer, then please don't try this at home. You might still injure your wrist. I do, however, still suggest a case of some sort because the back of the tablet is quite a fingerprint magnet, as you can see. Yeah. If there's one thing that matters to everyone on a tablet, it's the display. That's where all the magic happens. And the Pad 7 Pro has an 11.2-inch 3.2K IPS panel with a 3:2 aspect ratio. The ratio here is kind of special in a sea of 4:3 tablets and useful too. For instance, when reading documents in portrait mode, you get more vertical space. When looking at Google Sheets in landscape, you get more horizontal space. I mean, you'll still be getting black bars when watching 16:9 content, and you can no longer watch Cowboy Bebop in full screen, or Naruto for that matter, but it's a good trade-off, especially for work. Speaking of which, the advertised 800 nits peak brightness, which we measured to be about 781 nits at the center of the screen, is actually very viewable in most conditions, even when you're borrowing other people's Wi-Fi in a cafe. But you might as well order one drink, sit 6 hours. Jokes aside, the 144Hz refresh rate and 360Hz sampling rate also makes for some buttery smooth scrolling. No flicker issues either, since this is not OLED. There's even a Xiaomi Focus Pen with 8192 pressure sensitivity levels that's pretty nice for writing or sketching. Overall, as you can see, the image looks very sharp with accurate colors and good contrast, even if the blacks aren't as inky as with an OLED panel. To complete the viewing experience, we get quad speakers on the Pad 7 Pro, and they get pretty loud. Also, they have a V-shaped sound signature with a little bit more emphasis in the upper mids and treble as well as bass. The mids, especially with male vocals, sound a little thin, but it's still very clear because of the emphasis in the upper mids. I would say that this type of tuning is pretty versatile for most types of listening, so I quite like it. You can customize this even further. We get two options for tuning: Xiaomi's very own or Dolby Atmos, which is the one that I prefer. There's even an immersive sound version that gives us a somewhat wider soundstage, which makes watching movies more enjoyable. Still, you can always tweak things to your liking with the custom EQ. So, hot take. It's impossible for human beings to truly multitask, but it's definitely not going to stop us from trying. I was actually quite impressed at how effortless it is to pretend that I'm multitasking with this tablet that runs on the HyperOS 2 that's built on Android 15. Ignoring the clean interface and sleek animations, Xiaomi's put in some actually useful features. If you drag from the corner of your active app, it turns into a floating window that you can move around, resize, or snap it to one side for a split screen view. You can even open up to 4 floating apps at once in workstation mode if you're super kiasu. I mean, we've been doing all this on the PC since 2009, but it's one of those things that make it very hard for me to ditch the good old laptop for work. Also, while the USB 3.2 port does support display out, it only works for screen mirroring. I do wish that Xiaomi would bring back desktop mode, but because I remembered how some apps would go full screen and some wouldn't, I think it would be very difficult unless they made a native app for every application commonly used for productivity purposes. Oh yeah, 2D Face Unlock and the fingerprint scanner on the power button are both work hella smooth. When it comes to AI, I don't know about you, but I'm still in the honeymoon phase, so I often find myself toying with more novel features like the photography-related stuff like AI eraser and sky replacement. But for productivity purposes, AI writing lets you generate, summarize, or extend content using the native Notes app. It's not as advanced as some of the newer ChatGPT models, but it's still plenty useful. I also briefly tested AI Interpreter and AI Translator, which I find to be very useful to communicate with colleagues that speak in a different language.
你绝对应该订阅 Mob House Productions， 因为他们来自马来西亚的技术内容会让你的妈妈在地板上打滚。这些内容是如此原创，以至于他们不能再制作更多原创的东西了，因为我无话可说。还行。
Now, another thing that's quite important with a work device is, of course, the battery life. 10 days in and I barely complained about the battery life, which according to Wi-Fi is a good sign. We get a 8850 mAh lithium-ion polymer cell, which runs an impressive 12 hours and 30-ish minutes of 1080p YouTube on loop. The 67-watt fast charger gets the Pad 7 Pro from 0 to 100 in roughly an hour. So for my fellow nerds out there, let's talk numbers. Now we got the Snapdragon 8S Gen 3, 8 or 12 GB of LPDDR5X RAM, and up to 512 GB of storage. Xiaomi is not playing this time. For productivity, it scored an almost 2,000 points in single core and just over 5,000 points in multi-core in Geekbench 6.3. AI performance is also pretty good. My only nitpick is with that Adreno 735, which even though still scores well, struggles a little bit with more graphically demanding tasks. Still, for gaming, it breezes through most titles with ease, but don't tell your kid or it will no longer be your work tablet. We also did some stress tests with it, and the Pad 7 Pro ended the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme Stress Test with a stability score of around 90% while staying cool as a cucumber, only going up to a slightly warm 42.7 Celsius towards the bottom top of the tablet away from your hands. So, very nice. A lot of reviewers sleep on the cameras on tablets, but I would argue that it's actually quite useful if you say have your hands full holding the tablet while trying to read Google Map, while land surveying, for instance. You can snap pictures of the surrounding area. So the rear camera is a 50 megapixel wide angle camera with a Samsung JN1 sensor that takes surprisingly good photos for a tablet. Images look decently sharp with natural looking colors for the most part. It kind of messes up sometimes. I find it handy for taking photos of documents to add notes later, or even take photos of the stage while I'm attending an event to add notes to it so that I can write an article or make a TikTok video later. Very handy because I don't have to be typing notes halfway, whip up my phone, take a photo, and then continue typing like that. See? We only have 2 hands, not 3. At the front, we get a fixed focus 32 megapixel camera that takes decent enough photos at this price range. It also does 1080p videos in 30 FPS. Oh, I love it and I hate it at the same time. You and I drink poison from the same vine. Oh, I hate it and I love it at the same time. Hiding all of our sins from the daylight, running from the daylight. Finally, I have some feedback for Xiaomi. So these are the things that I wished were there while using the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro. Firstly, cellular connectivity. This might not be as useful for people who are mainly using the tablet from home because some of you just don't like to touch grass, but as a work device, I think it's quite important. For instance, I prefer to have a separate mobile device for work and personal. Having a tablet with a SIM card allows me to have separate WhatsApp accounts, so I don't have to use my phone for everything, that I can ignore after hours, for instance. I also don't want to fuss for that extra 30 seconds getting hotspot working every time I whip out the tablet to look at a Google Map while I'm site visiting in the kampong, or to pacify a crying baby in the car with Morgan Freeman's soothing voice. Every parent knows that to keep your sanity, every second counts. Xiaomi interconnectivity does make it much faster if you're using a Xiaomi phone as well, but still, I'd gladly pay a small premium for cellular in a work device. Now, some might complain about the lack of a micro SD card slot, but in my opinion, those things are janky as hell and gets corrupted easily. I think that built-in storage is always going to be faster and more reliable because it's, well, soldered. And if you still need more storage, you can always get an external SSD. Who is this tablet for? For its price and size, the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro might not be class-leading in terms of performance, but it's still a powerful tablet. I would categorize this as an upper mid-range tablet, like a Honda Civic for you car people. If you're a light user who mostly watches Netflix, takes notes, or browses the internet, the cheaper non-Pro Pad 7 is the better way to go. If you need a little bit more power for tasks like photo editing or have good use for the new AI features, then the Pad 7 Pro is a solid option as an extremely portable work device, as you can see, especially without the keyboard. Adding the Focus keyboard, which in my opinion is worth the 300 ringgit premium, makes this basically a more affordable alternative to the Fruit brand. It's got that same fancy floating design that's comfy to use even on your lap. One thing that I think the Fruit brand did right. The keys are also backlit with decent travel, so when you're typing on it, it feels like an actual keyboard. This thing will definitely boost productivity for people who type a lot, like replying to emails, dealing with Google Sheets, churning out scripts, or even prompting ChatGPT. However, it also makes the total package way closer to a thin and light laptop because the keyboard is pretty hefty. The Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro has become my sidekick for the past couple of weeks of both serious and not so serious monkey business. And I gotta say, for day-to-day work, now that I'm rarely doing heavier video editing, I do not really miss the extra performance from my laptop. The Pad 7 Pro just feels like the more practical option as a work device. Sure, there's the mild frustration of not having cellular, but the battery life, 3:2 aspect ratio display, and even user-friendly interface sort of makes up for it in spades. So that's everything I have to say about the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro. If you have any questions regarding this tablet, then feel free to leave a comment down below. Like and share this video if you found it helpful. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to not miss out on more awesome content like this with my face in it. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram because I know you are a stalker. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!